Have you ever stopped to wonder if AI could do more than just, spit out pretty pictures? What if it could actually use those pictures to teach us something deeply human, something like empathy? Well, today we're talking about an AI tool that's making some serious waves. And yeah, it has a totally charming name, Nano Banana Pro, but it might just be the spark for an incredible creative revolution in our schools. So, this is the big question we're diving into. We're looking at a piece of tech that goes way beyond just making art. We're asking if it can genuinely help us understand ourselves and each other on a whole new level.
And this tool, this Nano Banana Pro, really could be a total game changer, especially for teachers and students. But before we get to the really mind-blowing stuff, you gotta understand the problem it's solving.
To really appreciate just how big a leap this is, we need to take a quick look back at why so many teachers found the older AI image tools to be, well, frankly, a massive headache.
You've probably seen these. Oh man, the 3 big pain points were just maddening. First, you'd ask for some text and get back, something that looked like an alien's grocery list. Second, you'd try to generate the same character in a different scene, and you'd get their weird long-lost cousin instead. And of course, the classic, those illogical details like people having 7 fingers or an arm growing out of their head. Not exactly helpful.
Okay, so check out the difference. Nano Banana Pro, which is really a cool nickname for what's happening with Google's Gemini models, just tackles these problems head-on. It gives you correct traditional Chinese text, it makes sure your character looks like your character every single time, and the pictures, they actually make sense. This isn't a small fix. This is a huge deal.
So now that the technology actually works, what does that mean for learning? Let's start with the appetizers, the more straightforward, but still pretty amazing, ways this is shaking things up in the classroom. Think about it. In literature class, students aren't just reading about the poet Li Bai anymore. They can literally create an image of him standing on top of Taipei 101, looking at the very same moon he wrote about all those centuries ago. For a design student, an idea for a self-cleaning bento box goes from a sketch to a photorealistic concept in seconds. And for science, a complex topic like the water cycle becomes a super clear infographic that the student designed themselves. These are incredible applications, right? But honestly, they're just the opening act. The real power, the true game-changing potential of this technology lies in its ability to teach things that are far, far more abstract. Which brings us right back to our core question. Can artificial intelligence really help us teach and learn concepts like empathy, emotional regulation? This is the main course, folks.
Now, to answer that, we're going to use a framework that educators use called social emotional learning, or SEL for short. It's the perfect way to explore this AI's most profound and powerful capability.
SEL is built on 5 core ideas, or competencies. They kind of build on each other, starting with self-awareness and going all the way up to responsible decision-making. We're going to walk through each one and see how AI can make these really abstract ideas feel, well, real. First up is self-awareness. Now that sounds a little lofty, I know, but it's really just about helping students get a clear picture of what's going on inside their own heads, what they're feeling, what they're thinking. And this is where it gets really interesting. A student might say their motivation feels like a 4 out of 10. What does that even mean? Well, AI can help turn that vague number into a visible emotion monster, like this lethargic little bulldog just slumped over a deflated ball. All of a sudden, that feeling isn't some fuzzy mood anymore. It's a real thing you can actually look at and talk about. Okay, so once you can see your emotion, the next step is learning how to manage it. And that brings us to our second competency, self-management. So with AI, you can visualize not just the successful outcome, like this super proud bulldog who achieved his goal, but you can also illustrate the roadblocks. Look at the bulldog on the right, surrounded by all those excuses. I'm tired, this is too hard. This helps students see those mental traps before they fall into them, and they can start planning how to get around them.
All right, now for the main event. The third competency is social awareness, which is really just a fancy way of saying empathy, the ability to see things from someone else's point of view.
And this is where AI does something truly amazing. On the left, we see the world from the bulldog's perspective. He feels like he was unfairly scolded for talking in class. He's upset, he feels wronged, but then the AI generates the other perspective. We see the squirrel next to him. His pencil just broke and he was panicking. When you see both images side by side, the whole situation is instantly reframed. That's not just a picture, That is empathy in action.
And building right on top of that, we have relationship skills. We all know communication is key, but man, it is hard to teach. How do you actually show someone the impact their words can have? Well, you can visualize it. A student could ask the AI to show two different scenes. Scene 1, the tense, angry atmosphere of arguing with their mom over their phone. Scene 2, a totally different approach, calmly offering a cup of hot cocoa to start a real conversation. Seeing those two potential outcomes side by side makes it so clear how a tiny shift in your approach can lead to a radically different result.
And finally, all of this culminates in the fifth competency: responsible decision-making. I mean, life is just a series of choices, right? And learning to understand the future consequences of those choices is maybe one of the most important skills you can learn. AI can make those consequences feel tangible. So here, path A is the effort mountain. Yeah, it's a tough climb, but look, there's a treasure waiting at the top. Path B is the temptation tunnel. You know, staying up all night watching gaming streams. It looks easy and fun, but it just leads to being exhausted and falling behind. When you make abstract outcomes this concrete, the right choice becomes a whole lot clearer.
So this all sounds pretty amazing, but how do you actually do it? Let's get practical for a second and look at how you can talk to the AI to get these kinds of results.
The trick is to teach a simple four-part structure for prompts. First, the subject or metaphor, like using a lion to represent courage. Second, the environment, maybe he's standing on a cliff. Third, the art style you want, like a soft watercolor. And fourth, the atmosphere or color tone, like a bright, warm orange. This simple recipe helps the AI understand exactly what's in your head.
But, and you have to remember this, it's so important, creating the image is never, ever the end of the lesson. In fact, it's just the start. The real learning, the real magic, happens in the conversation that comes after.
So if the image is just the beginning, what's next? This is where the real magic happens. It's in the discussion, where a teacher or a parent can help a student connect that image on the screen back to their own inner world. So here's the crucial point. The real value of this technology isn't that it produces a perfect picture. It's that AI serves as a tool to start a conversation, not an answer that ends one. It takes the invisible, messy, confusing world inside our heads and makes it visible, something we can talk about, and maybe even something we can change.
And that might just be the most profound lesson that technology can offer us today. So it leaves us with one final question, one for you to think about. What invisible feeling inside of you are you going to make visible first?